PJNet.tv. It is part 2. This is actually live. The other was recorded live. For those of you that saw that, we are about to have some fun, and we're going to learn something too. And we're running a bumper. We are recording. We are streaming on, I don't know how many places. It's everywhere. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Let's do a countdown to Studio 18. Oh, well, good evening and welcome. This is PJNet.tv. I am Coach Prasick, and I am glad that you have taken some of your time to join us. If you are out there watching this on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or wherever, we're so glad you've joined us, and we do invite you to come join the fellowship going on right now. You can watch this very program with friends in the PJNet.tv chat room if you would just take yourself over there. I'm a little overwhelmed. That was such a that was very nice of Sherry Lynn. Not only very nice, she was well prepared. She put some effort into it, and it shines. She shines. She doesn't whine. She shines. She's the authority on that. She wrote a book on it. But you know what? The fun is only we're just getting started. We have some time we spend every week on Thursday night about this time with D Wininger. Now he blogs at jdwininger.com. I'm putting that on the screen as we speak. While I'm at it, I will put him on the screen as we speak. And I have the picture from your blog article right here, Love Languages, which I read and was very moved. At first, I thought it might have been a rerun. Was it?
No, sir.
No, the more I got into it.
Not to my knowledge, anyway, Coach, because I just had the idea about 6 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Calving season.
Well, you have so many voices in your head, it's hard to discern sometimes which one to listen to. And I was fascinated because have you read the book, famous author, The 5 Love Languages? Are you familiar with that one? It's a marriage enhancement.
I've heard of the book, Coach, but no, sir, I've never read it. And I couldn't tell you the author. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I bet Ben or Sherry Lynn, somebody knows.
Yeah. Well, I thought that, my thoughts drifted back to that. And I thought, how is this going to parallel? Well, it didn't. But it really spoke to me because that is one of the sweeter verses, the more picturesque passages in the scripture where when you read that, imagery comes into your mind and you can see it, and it's so comforting and so powerful and so true. So anyway, while I drink a little coffee, tell us what's in your blog and what drove you to write it, and just tell us your story.
Absolutely, Coach, and I'm with you. I love John chapter 10. It just it feels like you're getting a hug every time I read it, But so what in the world possessed me to write about love languages of all things? And it's funny because Miss Diane and I speak to Miss Diane, I guess I used about 7 different languages, and she knows a couple of them. What's interesting about love, Coach, is it doesn't matter how you say it. It doesn't matter how you show it. You know it when it's there. Mm-hmm. And right up front of my blog, I talked about, I come in from outside, and today we got rain coming tomorrow. So I mowed 3 acres of grass from 2:30 to about 6 this evening, just as fast as I could get that 0 turn to go, and trying to get all the grass mowed and everything cut and everything put away and ready for the rainstorm, because we got some chasing to do tomorrow morning early. And I come in and there's dinner waiting for me, and that's a way that Miss Diane shows love to me. And there's lots of other ways, Coach, laundry, and we won't go down the whole list. And she irons real good too. Now she'll appreciate that. That's an inside joke there. But or I look at on a winter's night, I go out and there's Bubba. Bubba the Chocolate Lab sleeps at my back door there in the garage, and I've got a little heat lamp like you'd use for chickens, a little infrared lamp.
Right.
And what's funny is there's always in the winter there's always two or three kittens tucked up under his belly, you know. And he tolerates them, you know. Come on, it's all right, you know. Oh, big old Bubba, keep you warm, you know. And but I'm listening to Benigno when he was born, little Ben's cow, and this little bull, and Mama and they're way out on the western edge of the world, and I'm watching, and you know I see one hoof crown, and I'm waiting, and I see that same hoof crown, and I'm going, okay, I don't need another first time heifer with a dissociate cow, you know, this is not good, Lord. So I'm praying fervently, but I'm trying to keep my distance, and Bubba's sitting there in the mule beside me. But you know, I'm timing and I'm watching the watch and going, come on, you know, it's been 15 minutes, been 20 minutes now, Lord, let's go. And she had the calf. It was not a problem. It was a beautiful little calf, you know, and everything just came out beautifully. And the thing that it just stirred my soul was immediately she turns around after birthing this 50-pound baby. Yeah, she turns around and starts cleaning it off, but she's talking, you know, and she's slow, yeah, and she's talking, and then all of a sudden the little calf starts talking, and I realize they're learning each other's call, and each one is unique, and it's funny because I can listen to one of my yearling steers out there that's getting ready for the processor. I can listen to one of them call and tell you which one it is. You know, or of course, my old buddy Maverick, he's got his own distinct little bugle that he uses when he's going, come on, baby, you know, when he's calling the girls up. And but the different cows all have a different voice. And the first thing they do is they teach that baby that voice. And after the baby has learned that voice, that's how the baby can call out. And Mama cow looks up and she's, you know, her ears are perked. Where is he? Where is he? Right? You know, and they're trying to find her. And that'll happen across the pasture sometimes. It's just amazing how they can pick that voice out. And what's funny is that a few weeks ago, I talked about the welcoming, Coach, how when babies are born, all the other cows will line up and come introduce themselves to the cow. And they'll do a little call and they'll talk to one another. And it's funny because they're, you know, I'm your Auntie Yolanda, or I'm Aunt Frances, or I'm whomever, you know, and you know, they're learning. And, you know, when they hear a calf out there, even if it's not theirs, if Mama's not responding, one of the others will. And they'll, really? I've seen them go headbutt Mama and you know, just whack her right in the side. Hey, pay attention, your baby's calling, you know. And so it's just neat to see that. And I said, that's a language of love, isn't it? That's a love language. And it just happens so much. And of course, John 10, you know, and verses 3 and 4 always come to mind, you know, and talked about the gatekeeper or the doorkeeper in the sheep's pen. And said to him, the doorkeeper opens, and the sheep hear his voice. And he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he brings out his own sheep, he's not bringing out somebody else's sheep because they're not going to follow him, right? So each shepherd will only get their own little flock. But he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. And that really struck me because something I do, and I didn't even realize that I'm doing this, but when a new calf is born, I like to keep them in my feedlot because I've got a much smaller fence. Coyotes can't get to them there and things. So I just feel they're a little safer. But the other thing that I always watch for is baby following Mama. Is baby coming to Mama when she calls? And if she is, then I'll let them out in the world and you know, you graduate, off you go, right? Go join the rest of the herd again. But if they don't follow, then I've got to put them back in there and teach them how to be mother and baby. Sometimes that happens. So being able to do that and understand that language of love is important. But my old buddy Doug Carter left a comment tonight, and I'm sorry that I've had lots of great comments, Coach. I just haven't had a chance to get to them all this week, but I'll always respond to them. But Doug pointed out something that was so important, and I'm glad that he and others got that. Yes, God knows our voice. He hears our voice, and instantly he knows that's Mark or that's JD or that's Catherine, whomever that is, crying out to him. How well do we know his voice? When he calls out to us, how well do we listen, Coach? Do we? Hey, that's God speaking. Pay attention to how this is important, right? Or do we just and go about doing what we do? Miss Diane calls it, and I know that I have pretty severe hearing loss, but Miss Diane calls it selective hearing because she is certain that the tonality of her voice or something causes me not to hear something she says. Now, honey, it could be that you're 2 rooms away from me, but that's beside the point. Yeah, and we do. Sometimes we'll be in a zone and we're working on something, and we'll tune out the world. I do that a lot as a writer. If I'm sitting here just clunking away at the keyboard, Diane can walk in, grab something off the printer, and go back and come over and whack me in the head before I notice that she's in the room. Now, it shouldn't be that way because she's a beautiful woman, but that's the reality. We just get so tunnel vision sometimes. But if we hear God speaking to us, do we listen? Do we know his voice as well as he knows our voice? So thanks, Mr. Doug. I appreciate you pointing that out tonight. Go ahead, Coach. You got your coffee.
Not enough of it to last as long as we're going to go. Many points I'd like to make. First is an anthropomorphic mistake, perhaps, but maybe between yourself and Ben, you can clear this up. But I have this theory. While in the womb, that calf could be able to perceive acoustic signatures of its mother.
Yes.
And the same would be true for humans. I don't know that's a fact, but I'm willing to bet it is.
That's why we read to the babies in the womb. That's why we pray with the baby in the womb. We want them to know mommy and daddy's voice. That's an important point, Coach. We want them to know our voice. We want them to be comforted and to know that they are loved and they are chosen and they are welcome additions to our family. So yes, sir, I absolutely agree with you. Animals can hear. Now, that cow's got a pretty thick carcass, and Mr. Ben might be able to tell me otherwise. He's the scientist of the group. But I know for a fact that babies can. Yeah, I don't question that at all. There's been countless studies that prove that. And that's why some kids are born with an innate ability to start reading and understanding words and things so much faster because, they were exposed to language and things in the womb.
Before I forget, you made a point that we touched on in the last segment. Do we hear God's voice? And there's a scripture that says he speaks to us in a still small voice. Well, I would add to that, initially, yes. And if we don't listen, he has some enhanced interrogation techniques that...
Very true.
It's best, JD, if we will listen for that still small voice, because if we choose to ignore it, he can escalate it, and it will not end well. It will not end well.
Very true. I think my friend Star Ayers may still be in the chat room. I hope Miss Star's still with us. But
she is. Mm-hmm.
Her book, For the Love of Emma, was based on a soldier at Fort Bragg. Mm-hmm. And I know Fort Bragg, Fayetteville area pretty well. But Miss Starr probably knows who the Pineland Indians are. But for those of you listening who's never heard of the Pineland Indians, they are a bunch of civilian and normally ex-military, often ex-special forces, who portray during special forces selection these indigenous
Indigenous.
personnel. They're villagers, whatever. And one of the missions is we have to win them over so that they'll help us complete whatever mission it is that we're assigned from their bag of tricks, as I like to call it. Except, the Pine Mountain Indians are notorious for being the most cantankerous son of a gun you ever want to meet. I mean, it's human nature. It's real stuff. Well, I remember reading about, now I didn't do this, but I remember reading about Command Sergeant Major Eric L. Haney and going through that selection. But what I remembered was, the civilian, he tried to tell him, you need to wear socks and you need to wear boots out here because this old jungle is going to rot your feet off, right? I'm full of machismo and bravado. And so Sergeant Major Eric said, okay. So he led him through every bramble bush and every ravine and every sharp rock and everything else he could find. At the end of the day, this poor Indian's feet were just raw. I mean, just blistered and bloodied and scraped and painful and stone bruises and everything else. Well, Man Sergeant Major Haney sets him down, cares for his feet. The next morning, they all get up to strike another path, another march, and guess who's wearing boots with socks?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and God does it the same way, Coach. Listen, I'll try to make it easy for you. Read my word, follow my word, live my word. We're gonna be all right. I'll tell you. I stand behind you, tell you, whisper to you, left or right. Yeah. But if you don't listen, hey, I'll take you through a few bramble bushes. That ain't beneath me. And those trials. Now, it's not a temptation; it's a trial, Coach. But that trial is to teach us and to strengthen us and to embolden us, right? And to learn to trust Him. And I think that's an important point you make, sir.
Well, while you brought it up, the word trial and temptation, I was posed with a very vexing question theologically in a small group Bible study, and I didn't have the answer. In the book of James, we are assured that God will not tempt us.
Satan tempts.
Yet Jesus, in his prayer, the model prayer, includes a phrase, and lead us not into temptation. Those seem to contradict one another. Well, I said, I don't know the answer. Let me get back to you on that. So I did some study on the word temptation. Mm-hmm. In our contemporary culture, that means only one thing, evil solicitation. That's what it means. Yeah. Now, when it was originally used, it certainly meant that, but it also could mean, depending on the context, a trial. Now, JD, you and I use tools and implements, and we buy materials. I was just using some polyline, sometimes called zip line in our industry, mm-hmm. and I know that it has a 300-pound tensile strength. And I knew I was suspending, some wire across, blah, blah, blah. So in the former original use of the word temptation, it could say tempted to 300 pounds tensile strength. Tempted means tried, tested. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so you've got PTOs out there. You've got all kind of gadgets that you use that you rely upon the rating of that implement.
Yes. To
find the appropriate use or inappropriate use. And so therefore you have more confidence in it. So, the use of the word temptation today means evil solicitation, but the original use mm-hmm. of the word biblically could also mean trial or test that is used to bolster confidence and faith rather than to, okay. So just a free lesson in theology there for all of you that were vexed by that as I was.
That's good.
I wanted to meet your bet and raise the ante a little bit. You point out that not only humans, but animals even, recognize the unique acoustic signature of their mother.
Yeah.
I can recognize my wife's footsteps in a
Is that
crowd.
right? Wow.
There is a certain cadence and a certain, you just learn. You just learn.
Yeah.
You can hear, and it's a marvelous thing that, the engineering that God has put into us and all of his creation, that we can discern one voice from another. It's I'm awestruck as an engineer, just the science of it. Okay.
Yeah.
But it also tells me that God loves us. It tells us that there's more to this than the theory of evolution would purport.
Yeah.
That there is some purpose. There is, and by the way, there's only three things that make us at the top of the food chain, in my opinion. And I have written many opinions on this, and I've studied the subject, so I feel like I have an informed opinion. Number one, we have an opposing thumb.
Yeah.
So what? Okay, well, that means we can build and use tools to manipulate our environment. Okay, we can build weapons to protect ourselves from what it is. The reason that we're not or at the top of the food chain is it's not because we are the strongest. There are many animals stronger than we are. Not because we are the fastest. There are many animals faster than we are. It's not that we're the biggest. None of that. Okay, so we build and use tools, but that's not enough. We have a highly developed cerebral cortex. This frontal lobe portion of the brain is disproportionate as found in other animals. First of all, we have a large brain in general, in relation to the size of our body. Yeah. But that portion of the brain is responsible for reasoning, learning, cognitive functions that we rely on. But that is not enough. That's not enough, because you can't learn enough. Because if that were it, we would have to learn by trial and error, and we probably would not survive the error. We have a highly developed level and skill in communication, where, what is it? A smart person learns from his mistakes. A wise person learns from the mistakes of others.
Right. Yes. Very true, Coach. Yeah, very true. I would add one more difference, Coach.
Okay.
And this one has been something that I've been studying on for the past couple of weeks, and to me it's important, and it's because I had to euthanize a calf, and that's always a terrible thing to do. And we talked last week about, heart versus mind, right? Oh, you want to save it. Your heart says you got to save it. Your mind knows you're wasting more money and time and energy and resources that you can use with the other animals. So, you have to weigh and balance those things. But I remember, praying, but before I commit this act, I remember praying, Father, I commit this loving animal's soul to your care. And that's different. And therein lies the difference, Coach. And it's in Ephesians, and I'm sorry I can't give you exact chapter and verse, but I know it's in the book of Ephesians. But it makes it very clear that humans are body, soul, and spirit. And soul is our personality. Soul is our emotion. Soul is what makes us do what we do. It makes us who we are. But spirit is that part that communicates with God. And while animals, I believe, have souls, and I know folks will tell me, oh, no, they don't, and I'm not going to argue, because at the end of the day, God's going to settle it, but I believe animals have souls. And I say that because I've watched animals grieve at the loss of a calf or a loss of a yearling or whatever. I watched animals comfort one another. You can't do that if you're a soulless being, Coach.
Right.
I'm sorry. I just won't accept that.
Well, they are at the very least empathic. They have empathy, and I agree with you, JD. This is not in dispute. Elephants are really close to us socially. Elephants will defend the dead carcass, okay, of one of their family. Elephants, mama elephants, have been known to die of a broken heart over the loss of their little one. Okay, and I see so many examples, and they're heartwarming in general. I don't know the answer to ensoulment in terms of eternal. Are we going to have dogs in heaven? But I know this: the bond that animals have that you've mentioned. The bond that we have with our dogs, our cat, there's something, there's more to this than evolution could possibly explain how. I mean, when you start crying, animals.
When Bubba got snake bit a couple of years ago, that broke my heart.
Yeah, it's. But God is a very loving God, and as I read your blog, I mean, I was just overwhelmed. It was an immersive dive into love. And I think that it behooves us to slow down long enough to experience love. Now, JD, we can sit here and talk all night and talk intelligently about the topic. But you could also read a book on how to ride a bicycle, and you could read another book, and you could read 100 books on riding a bicycle, and you wouldn't know how to ride a bicycle. And I can tell you from experience that there is such a thing as agape love. And I could sit here and explain it all night. I did. I just didn't know what it was yet until I experienced it.
Yeah, I always think of a line Miss Diane shared with me. It's been some years ago now. But she explained this to me, and as only Miss Diane could, right? She's my soulmate, she's my buddy. But she said, love is what's left when the lust is left. When lust is gone, love is what's left over. And that has been had such a profound impact on my life because it took love for my wife, in this case, to a whole nother level. And I saw that. And when we brought my dad here to Texas to live with us for about a year, it took love to a whole nother level. And I got to experience what they said in First.
Well, JD got to experience that which he learned in First whatever. So I will await JD to reappear, and in the meantime, I will share. I wanted to break in and say something anyway, because he mentioned something very profound. And I'm sorry that he can't hear this, because I would love to hear his get his take. He talked about, okay, he can hear me now. I can hear. Well, and it's funny, JD, because I can hear you, but I can't see you. So let's just go with that. Because I was about to comment on your wife's comment about love is what is left after the lust is gone. Tony Evans explained something very well to me along those same lines. The measure of love is the measure of sacrifice. Okay? If what you have is lust or eros type love for a person, you're not sacrificing, you're receiving, you're getting. It's right. It's about what you're getting out of it. But see, when that is taken away, and let's suppose for a moment that your spouse were to become a paraplegic, okay, with no physical ability to respond to you. would that be the end? No, not if you are biblically married. Okay, biblical marriage is a covenant. The covenant. Now, this is far different from the world's transactional and contractual nature of marriage. Okay, marriage is not a social contract, although it is. It's more than that biblically. It is a covenant. A covenant means I will love you no matter what. Has nothing to do with what you're doing for me. Now, let me break this down a little bit more in simpler terms. My father taught me a lesson. I was a teenager. I was working on my motorcycle, and he told me to kind of wrap it up because it's time to go to church. I said, "Well, Dad, I don't want to go to church. I just don't get much out of it." Now, he could have said, "I don't care what you think." He could have, but he used a very different approach, and apparently it worked because this was some 50 plus years ago, and I remember it well. He changed the subject. He says, "What are you working on there?" I said, "Yeah, my bike." He said, "What are you doing to it?" I said, "The valve tappet clearance is needing adjustment." And, I started to explain in mechanical terms to him the work I was doing. He says, "Man, that's hard work." Yeah, it is, Dad. He says, "I'm really proud of you, the way that you're learning this stuff on your own." He said, "And, you put a lot into this." Yeah. He says, "Why?" I said, "Well, I love my bike." He says, "In other words, you get a lot out of it, right?" "Yeah, Dad." He says, "But you put a lot into it." "Yeah, I do." He says, "How much you put into church? You're not getting much out of it." I mean, that was, he got me. I mean, I must have been 14. Oh yeah, it really got me. He says, "Maybe you're not getting much out of it because you're not putting much into it. Get your ass up and clean up. Let's go to church." Right. And, but he really used a lot of wisdom, and there have been so many encounters like that. And I don't know about you, but I replay a lot of game films from way back in my life, and that was one of those moments that I cherish. And it was. So I don't know what happened to your video, JD. Right. This is the new podcast format that we've adopted. Yeah, I'm just noticing that, JD, although I'm hearing you just fine, nothing that you've said has been heard outside of my ears. But anyway, all right, well, let's do this. Let's just, JD, the electrons were not cooperating, but hopefully you were able to glean some wisdom from the words that JD shared with us while we were able to do that. And I regret that we had those errors, whatever technical problem it was. And I know it's already very late. I just want to tell you that I am looking forward to tonight. I'm looking forward to tomorrow because I am rapidly accelerating. Part of the on the 3D animation, part of the problem was I'm not an artist, and I had to learn something. And I should know this because I've written software. You have to visualize the end product before you can start moving toward that. You can't just kind of wander around playing and fidgeting with the tools and hope that you build something. You have to have a purpose. You have to have, here's what I want, and I'm going to break it down and, well, I've got it. And I have made tremendous progress, I fully believe. barring any unforeseen circumstances, that if you'll join us tomorrow night, sometime between 9 and 10, I may make a little short video. Maybe I can make it short enough to send it to Hazards, who is in control tomorrow night. Maybe he can incorporate that into his presentation if I keep it short enough, because he uses. Now, speaking of that, I'm done for the week here on this set. And I get Friday nights off, and I am so grateful that Steve Hazards has taken over Friday night, offered himself up, and it started out as one thing, and it has just grown and grown and grown. And I am so grateful that I get the night off, and I'm so grateful that Hazards shares some time with us. We start about 9 o'clock Eastern, and he'll be playing, quite frankly, a lot of jazz, but he throws in some oldies just to keep old farts like me happy now and then, But then at 10 o'clock, my perspective and comment. About 10 o'clock, somewhere in there. Kind of depends on when YouTube processes the video. Anyway, but we have very good attendance on that night. People just muster up, and he will go through this week current events and talk about them and relate it to a spiritual point of view. And then when he gets done, he preaches a little sermon at the end. It's really good. It's really good, and a great way to end your weekend. Again, I want to say thank you to Sherry Lynn Bisbano for the way that she just blessed me. And the way she is such a professional. I don't know how long she took preparing for that, but I know that she didn't just wing it. I know that some time and thought and effort went into that, and I'm deeply grateful. And she's not the only one. If I start this, I'm grateful for, I'll be here until midnight, and even then I'll leave people out. So just take my word for it, please, and just know that this coach loves each player on this team. Each person has a special mission, not only in God's kingdom, but those who come here and participate and make it what it is. And there's so much more that we can do, that we want to do. And I just pray that in God's time, and when we are ready to receive the blessings that He is storing up for us, He will open those heavens and pour them out. And I want to have more to offer. And I look in the chat room, I go through the chat each night. I'm just so grateful for each one of you, and thank you again, Sherry Lynn, for honoring me and having so much fun doing it. And I just look forward to the best days are yet to come at pjnet.tv. I'm just overwhelmed. So thank you all for joining us tonight. I hope you'll be here tomorrow night. But as I leave, I am compelled to ask you to ask yourself 2 questions that I think are vitally important. The first one is, what exactly is the boldest thing that you've ever done for Jesus Christ? And the second one is, when was that exactly? I hope that none of us will ever be satisfied with our answer to either of those 2 questions.